그럼 지금부터 4차 산업혁명 시대 페알락 비즈니스 협력 방안을 주제로 제3차 페알락 비즈니스 포럼 1세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 이번 세션은 김원호 외국어대학교 국제지역대학원 교수님께서 좌장을 맡아 진행을 해주실 예정입니다. 김원호 교수님께서는 중남미 관련 다양한 분야에서 왕성한 학술활동을 통해 많은 학자와 학생들의 귀감이 되고 계신 교수님이십니다. 좌장님과 발표자분들을 무대 위로 올라와 주시기 바랍니다.
I've got a very important mission this morning to complete the first panel in about 60 minutes, the shortest panel in this three-day event, but I think the most important panel. We're going to touch upon the most significant issues. For the past couple of days, we discussed the concept of the fourth industrial revolution and what that means for Korea and each of Latin American countries, and what it implies for Korea-Latin America relations. But this morning, we are going to broaden the scope to the framework of Fealac, which already mentioned the two speakers. It is 36 country consultation entity, and the same challenges and risks that the Industry 4.1 gives actually apply to the same way to those 36 member countries. Finding a cooperation model in the framework of Fealac will not be an easy task, but this morning we are having three wise panelists, I would expect, to touch upon this issue. Okay, let me invite the first speaker from SCOP, United Nations SCOP, Mr. Kilaparti Ramakrishu. Please welcome Mr. Kilaparti.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Honorable Chairman, and my distinguished colleagues, I have great pleasure in being here and in addressing the topic that is given to me, which is transforming our world, business and technology for sustainable development goals. The importance of collaboration and cooperation between Latin American countries and Korea, as our chair had talked about, has been the topic of discussion for the past 2 days. Today, we are expanding that. My mission, in simple terms, is to tell you a little bit about the most transforming initiative that the United Nations had ever taken, which is the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals at the summit in 2015 in United Nations, New York, and to urge you that in whatever that you do in terms of building the bridges between these two very important regions in the world, as Ambassador Lim said, they account for almost close to 50% of GDP, to use this as the frame of reference, to use Sustainable Development Goals as the frame of reference. Even though I am the first speaker in this panel, I'm mindful of the fact that the chair had said that we have only 60 minutes and it is the shortest amount of time that we have for this panel. So I'm going to go a little bit rapidly in my presentation in hopes that we save a little bit of time and that we could have some conversation. My presentation is divided basically along these four major themes. First, a little bit of introduction about the Sustainable Development Goals. Second, the fourth industrial revolution for Sustainable Development Goals. And the third is more about East Asia, the broader 36 countries that Ambassador Lim talked about, and Latin America economic ties. And fourth is working together. The first point I would like to draw your attention to is this, yes. The Sustainable Development Goals is, as I said in the beginning, the transformative agenda of the United Nations. It succeeds the Millennium Development Goals, which were adopted in 2000, and the term for that finished with 2015, and we began with Sustainable Development Goals. The big difference between Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals is this. The Millennium Development Goals were developed by the UN Secretariat, drawing from the Millennium Declaration that was adopted in the year 2000. The Sustainable Development Goals, on the other hand, were drawn up by the world community, not just member countries, but everybody. United Nations launched the what kind of world do you want to live in campaign, and received tens of millions of suggestions from young people, students, businessmen, activists of various kinds, to say what it is that they would like to see in the Sustainable Development Goals. So there is a great deal of attention paid already to Sustainable Development Goals by the business community, and the result is what we have today. And this is an improvement, significant improvement from the Millennium Development Goals for a variety of reasons. In the first instance, the Millennium Development Goals talked about planet, people, and prosperity, but we have added to that partnerships and peace as a major point. The second point is the recognition of the role of the business community in making this come true. That is a very significant part of it. And the third part of it is that this is not just for the developing countries, it is for the world as a whole, so it is universal in its reach. The fourth and the most important point is each goal is not to be met with as a goal in itself. There are a great deal of connections between one goal and another goal, and as you see, we have 17 goals, but there are 169 targets, and there are about 344 indicators. These indicators are mapped to go from one goal to another, one target to another, and it's really very significant. Now, you have seen these pictures. In fact, if you have followed the 2015 adoption of these goals, one of the most spectacular sights was to see these goals projected onto the UN building in the General Assembly in New York, and it's really quite extraordinary. All goals are important, of course, but I want to focus more on Goal 17, dealing with means of implementation, or in other words, Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. On the left-hand side, you find the major ideas that are contained in that. And these are the topics, not surprisingly, that many of you have talked about in your presentations yesterday. Finance, we have had the Addis Ababa Action Agenda. Information and communication technology, a central point in the fourth industrial revolution. Capacity development, many of the presentations have talked increasingly about it is not enough to just talk about technology and trade and other things, but make sure that the countries and people that need the capacity to comprehend what is going on and to use that to their benefit is absolutely important. Trade, data monitoring and accountability. But to the right side, you see the ways to get there. The bilateral and multilateral, regional and interregional cooperation. And what we are here is to talk about the interregional cooperation. Fealac, that Ambassador Lim talked about. ESCAP, UN Regional Commission, the oldest commission in the United Nations system, and the second oldest commission, ECLAC, are here to work with Fealac in making sure that these goals and this particular goal 17 are given a lot of attention. Now, the fourth industrial revolution and sustainable development goals, the connection is important. And when you think about it, this is a part that is familiar to all of you. We began with mechanization and then mass production and now computer and automation, and we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, or as is oftentimes called, Industry 4.0. Internet of Things, how do you use that to your benefit? Artificial intelligence, big data, robots, drones, cloud computing, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, and the list goes on. The idea here is to really talk about how you use internet to do things that you were doing before, but to the benefit of meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. There are just few examples that I have taken here. You take agriculture, and we are all familiar with how we wanted to increase agricultural production. And what did we do? We tried to use fertilizers. And the government policies were such that fertilizer is subsidized. So you could use more fertilizer in hopes that you get more productivity. Well, what it happens is the absorptive capacity is limited, and the more fertilizer that you use is run off and then goes into the water system, and we have dead zones and various other environmental problems. But you can use internet and the Internet of Things in terms of understanding exactly how much is needed at any given area, and then also project that with reference to the smart sensing and monitoring and analysis and planning and controls that work well. And likewise, with fishery production management, we have the sustainable catch, our maximum sustainable yield, and you can figure out, again, using the technologies that are available today in terms of moving forward with how to use that in a most sensible and discrete way. The costs will be lower, the impact on the environment is very much minimized, and the productivity continues to be what it was or even better, and everyone is living happily with that. Digitization of the mining industries, and you're all familiar with how the mining is declining over a period of time. But again, mining has a great deal of impact on environment, as well as on the health and the condition of the people working in the mining industry. Here too, you could use the Internet of Things to get where we want to move forward. Infrastructure. Very recently, in Jeju, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank had their second board meeting. And it was a remarkable event in the sense that a bank that was created barely less than 2 years ago has now 70 member countries. The President of the Republic and the Deputy Prime Minister, they were all present there. The point there was about infrastructure, but infrastructure to us is not just building roads and bridges, but also all the other things that go with it. And in this context, the infrastructure that we're talking about is the Internet of Things and ensuring that data can be transferred constantly to and from anywhere. And this has tremendous impact and influence in how governments manage to govern themselves and deal with all the things that need to be done. Now, this sounds a little bit off-key because we're talking about education here, but this is one of the key goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. And when you read the top, it says 2/3 of the kids in school today will have jobs. Kids that are in school today will have jobs when they grow up. About 2/3 of the jobs that they are when they grow up are not there today. I mean, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, this is what the World Economic Forum had said, that a kid growing up today, when he's of age to get a job, 2/3 of the jobs that exist then are not there today. In other words, you need to prepare the children differently. And education is absolutely vital in that, and to be able to deal with the automation and everything else that goes with it. Now, this is the third part, and I'm going to spend less time on this for the simple reason that many of the presentations yesterday have focused on the economic ties between, of course, Latin America and Korea, but then it extends to East Asia in this context. But I want to go through very rapidly. When you think about it, the trade between East Asian countries and Latin America and Caribbean have grown significantly, and a point that Ambassador Lim had mentioned as well. So what we are talking about now is, if you just limit yourself to East Asia, as in China, Japan, and Korea, and Latin America, we're talking about 16% of the Latin American countries' trade is with these three countries. And as a whole, if you take all of East Asia, it's about 21% of Latin American countries' trade. Again, these are exports drawn largely to the three countries in East Asia region. China, obviously, is the dominant partner in this, 16.82%. Korea, 6.05%, and Japan, 5.03%. FDI, my colleague from ECLAC who will be speaking after me, is going to spend a good bit of time on this, so I'm not going to spend any time, but we can have a conversation about this later on. The two-way investment by sector, when you think about this, this is data from the Asian Development Bank. These are about the investment relationships between Asia and Latin American countries, and they show a very significant investments in manufacturing and technology-based sectors. There are investments in the services sector, there are investments in the financial sector, and as we move forward in trying to capitalize on these various goals, you want to really think about how to target these investments and how you want to move forward. Now, I'm coming to the final part of my presentation, which is about working together. And interestingly, I have only one slide to show you in this, but this is really key, not only in terms of bringing these two regions together, but also in terms of these two regions go to any meeting in Korea, you will have, no matter what the topic is, whether it is about youth, whether it is about women, whether it is about disabilities, trade, transport, anything, you will talk about Fourth Industrial Revolution. So they were able to do that because they have taken to the agenda of the science, technology, and innovation in a major way, and investing in the infrastructure in Latin America, and given the strong support from many of the panelists here in terms of taking the example of Korea, how it moved from being a developing country to a developed country, and the emphasis that it placed on science, technology, and innovation is really the way to move forward in this realm. The thing, of course, is investment in human capital is absolutely vital. It is not just about building machineries and technology, but that, when you combine that with the point that I made earlier about education and the impact that it has, is going to profoundly influence how the countries are able to benefit from these things. The final point I want to make is this. The collaboration has to be not just between governments. One of the things that we learned in terms of increasing regional cooperation and collaboration in East Asia, that it is not just between governmental institutions, but it is between people. It is between private sector. It is between private sector and people, private sector and government. So the connections have to go beyond just the intergovernmental meetings, the so-called type 1 meetings, but go to track 1.5, 2, etc. And that is really the way to move forward. And I hope that as you conclude these deliberations, that you will take the Sustainable Development Goals as your frame of reference, and the United Nations, of course, is here to work with you in making sure that happens. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramakrishna. Thank you for your excellent and concise presentation. ESCAP is representing Asia and the Pacific in the United Nations Economic and Social Council. And its counterpart in Latin America and the Caribbean is ECLAC, CEPAL in Spanish and Portuguese. We are having Mr. Wilson Perez representing ECLAC's view. And particularly, I would like to appreciate Mr. Wilson's hard work for this event, because this will be his second presentation touching upon different themes. So I know he really did the hard work for the past several days. Please welcome Mr. Wilson Perez.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. I will try to be brief, and I will review a few facts about Latin America industrial structure, and at the end I will try to concentrate on the new business opportunities and the new business challenges that are being produced by the current technological revolution. First, as you well know, Latin America largest corporations are concentrated in very different sectors than corporations in the world. If you see the list of the largest corporations in the world, of course you have Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, and firms like those. When you go to Latin America, the first corporation is a producer of beer, then you have a bank, oil, another bank, mining, etc. Don't make the mistake of thinking that these are low-tech corporations. Banking in Latin America is no low-tech, oil is no low-tech, mining is no low-tech. These are firms, are corporations that are not producing the foremost or the frontier technology, but they are stronger users of very, very much advanced technology. Just keep that in mind. Second, where is the Korean investment in Latin America, and why is important the sectors in which that investment is located? Here you have the flows of investment. On one side, you have the investment in millions of dollars. On the other, on the right hand, you have the number of projects. You see that it has a pattern that follows very much the international business cycle, or let's say the international economy. But this is a very important piece of information, I think. If you look at the composition of the announced projects that Korea had in Latin America in the last decade, you find sectors like automotive, consumer electronics, automotive components, financial services, and that is a pattern that is quite different than the pattern of other countries in Latin America. Most investment in Latin America is concentrated either in services or in natural resources. But the Korean pattern of investment is concentrated. It has also an important share in metals and coal, oil, and natural gas, but is very important in manufacturing. That is to say, from the Latin American standpoint, Korean investment is a very good kind of investment. It's the kind of investment we need, and is the kind of investment we appreciate. Going more in the new technologies investment, you find that you have a lot of investment in the communications area, but you have very low share in software and services. Of course, this reflects your comparative advantage, but I would say that, and that is a message of all this presentation, that you have to increase your participation in the new areas of software and IT service in Latin America. You have a good pattern of investment in our region, but you can improve that pattern if you move strongly into these new areas. What is the core of what I'm going to present as a proposal is that the digital economy is all about interaction and cooperation. So I would say that fostering interaction and fostering cooperation is the way to move forward. And for that, I considered your policy of 2016, your National Informatization White Paper, is an excellent document. And I was trying to compare last week the contents of your document with what is taking place in Latin America. There are differences, but we are interested in the same three sectors. We are interested in advanced manufacturing, we are interested in robotics, and we are interested in artificial intelligence. If you follow your white book, you would see that you have very good policies for that. And if you go into the detail of what is happening in Latin American business sector, that you will find that we are moving slowly, but we are moving in advanced manufacturing, we are moving slowly in robotics, and we are moving slowly, but we are moving forward in artificial intelligence. You know that artificial intelligence, according to the last McKinsey report, is being applied for no more than 10% of the largest corporations in the world. In Latin America, you have also a small participation, but most of people that are related with business, high technology business, think that we are going to move much faster in this area. 2 days ago, I presented some cases showing what we have in advanced manufacturing, for instance, in Brazil. I will not go in detail of that, but you find here firms that are Brazilian firms, for instance, Gerdau, Brazilian private firms that were previously state-owned firms at Embraer. You have some American firms, German firms, or general European firms. So you see that advanced manufacturing is moving, and is moving rather fast, for instance, in automobiles. But not only that, there are huge opportunities in the agricultural sector. I just consider here the Brazilian case, but you have agricultural machinery, you have startups in agriculture, and you have a lot of activity in pulp and paper and other kind of agriculture. So just pay attention to that. There are opportunities not only in mining, there are opportunities not only in manufacturing, there are a lot of opportunities in agriculture. And if you consider what are the largest think tanks in the world, for instance, Accenture, thinking of the impact that artificial intelligence may have in Latin America, is over the long run. You have 2035 here. Actually, they think that for countries as diverse as Brazil, Argentina, and Chile on one side, Colombia and Peru on the other side, you find that they expect that the application of artificial intelligence will make the growth rate of these countries increase by 1 percentage point for 2035. You know that to speak about 2035 is the very, very long run, but is that what think tanks that are having a strong influence on business people decisions in Latin America are saying. What do you have to pay attention if you are going to move or you are going to consider things in the area of Internet of Things? Just pay attention to some projects that were mentioned yesterday or the day before. You have a very interesting roadmap on Internet of Things in Mexico that was developed already in 2014. You have very, very interesting smart specialization programs in Chile. They were developed for the period 2014-2018, related with smart city, health, agriculture, manufacturing, mining, astronomy. And also, we expect for the second half of the year to have Internet of Things program developed by the Brazilian Development Bank and the Ministry of Science and Technology of Brazil. So if you go to other countries, you will see that in their technology programs, in their manufacturing plans, they mention also the need to move forward. But I would say these are perhaps the most advanced cases of policies directly aimed at improving or implanting Internet of Things in Latin America. And now I will try to present the idea, what can we do now regarding cooperation and what is to be done. I would say that the usual way of doing cooperation is right. You have to continue supporting the specialization of small and medium-sized enterprises. We have to continue supporting trade facilitation mechanisms. We have to continue with improving the sustainability of supply chains. And we have to use much more information for the designing of policies and for the implementation of policies. That is right. But the new approach is that we have to implement these cooperation programs using all the knowledge we already have on digital platforms and digital technologies. This is the moment to mix the advances in information technologies with traditional cooperation. And you know that we can make a lot of progress if we implant, for instance, much more efficient platforms, for instance, for small and medium-sized enterprise internationalization or for trade facilitation. So I would say that the core of the new models will have to be the mixture, the blend between information technologies and traditional cooperation systems. And I would say that the other thing is the second message I would like to present to you, is the idea that Latin America is moving towards the constitution of a regional digital market. We started with this proposal in 2015, 2 years ago. The proposal was very well received by some countries. We got a lot of support, for instance, at the beginning from Mexico, later from Chile, later from the Pacific Alliance countries, that is to say Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. And I would say that that is extremely important, particularly for the following panel. What is the idea? The idea is that we have a market of about 600 million people, divided into 200 million that speak Portuguese and 400 million that speak Spanish, but we can consider that difference. But if we work at the country level only, even for a country as large as Brazil, it's extremely difficult to have scale, to negotiate on good conditions with the global operators and with the global platforms. So I would say we have to gain scale, and to gain scale, a regional digital market is extremely important. We have to develop much better conditions for e-commerce and for the production of IT goods and services. You know that that does not depend only on platform, depend a lot on your domestic regulations, depend a lot on logistics, for instance, all the delivery of packages. But if we work towards a regional market, the digital market, we have the opportunity of working and improving in those specific areas. Of course, we need to do a lot regarding the protection of online consumers. We have to improve our regulatory frameworks, and of course, the issues, and that is obvious, of that data protection and security. So I would say that the framework of cooperation that we have today is good. We can improve that framework of cooperation with the combination of the use of the new technologies, the new digital technologies, paying attention to the awareness of the Latin American governments related with the importance of the fourth industrial revolution. And second, pay a lot of attention to this building of the regional digital market. Because if we make further progress, and I'm sure we will make, towards these regional digital markets, the condition for e-commerce, the conditions for the production, distribution, and appropriation of IT goods and services will be completely different. So I would say, and I finish with that, and sorry for being so fast, but that was the introduction, there are opportunities. When there are opportunities, there are uncertainty too. I cannot deny that we have risk, we have uncertainty, but you well know that without uncertainty, there are no high profit rates. So if you want, at the end, what is important is expected profit rates. And so if we go into the new sectors with the strength, and we benefit, and we use the opportunities of traditional cooperation plus information technologies, and this movement towards a regional digital market, I'm sure that you will be very, very happy with your investments in Latin America. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson Perez, for your insightful presentation. In Korea, we have 40 plus public sector research institutions and about, I would say about 10 important private sector think tanks. Today, we are having a representative from POSRI. POSRI is POSCO Research Institute. It is one of the most important private sector think tank in Korea. Please welcome Mr. Oh Sung-ju from POSRI.
안녕하십니까. 포스코 경영연구원의 오성주라고 합니다. 오늘 이런 영광스러운 자리에 발표할 기회를 주셔서 외교부를 포함한 모든 관계자 여러분께 다시 한번 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 저는 오늘 4차 산업혁명 시대에 동아시아와 라틴 아메리카의 협력을 통한 성장과 시너지 방안에 대해 이야기해 보려고 합니다. 포스코 경영연구원은 민간 사업자인 포스코의 민간 경제연구소이지만 오늘은 4차 산업혁명의 실체를 가지고 좀 더 거시적인 차원에서 논의를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 슬라이드는 총 4부분으로 구성하였습니다. 먼저 도입부에서는 지금 우리가 처한 글로벌 환경에 대해서 얘기를 하고, 그 다음에는 4차 산업혁명의 여러 특징과 특징을 살펴보고 4차 산업혁명이 가져다 줄 위험 요인과 기회 요인은 무엇인지 살펴보도록 하겠습니다. 마지막으로는 시사점을 통해서 페알락 국가들이 서로 협력할 수 있는 방안이 있는지를 살펴보겠습니다. 글로벌 환경 부분입니다. 글로벌 환경은 정치, 경제, 사회 할 것 없이 빠르게 변하고 있습니다. 특히 2008년 이후에 미국의 금융위기 이후로 글로벌 경제 환경은 더욱더 혼란스럽고 불안정한 상태가 지속되고 있습니다. 리만 브라더스 파산으로 시작된 미국의 금융위기는 제너럴 모터스를 법정 관리에 넣으면서 대규모 구제금융과 대량 해고의 사태를 일으키면서 전 세계 경제에 충격을 주었습니다. 생산량 증가로 일어난 저유가는 원유 산업 비중이 높았던 중남미 국가들의 화폐 가치 급락을 일으키며 일부 국가에서는 금융위기에 가까운 어려움을 처하게 만들었습니다. 사회 문제도 심각한 편입니다. 지구 온난화와 함께 그 환경 오염은 이제는 인류의 생존을 위협하는 수준까지 이르렀습니다. 한국이나 일본과 같은 나라들에서는 인구 고령화가 사회 문제의 핵심으로 대두되고 있고요. 최근 유럽을 강타한 테러는 전 세계 인류의 안전과 행복을 크게 위협하고 있습니다. 정치적인 이슈들도 많이 있었습니다. 브라질에서는 2014년부터 사회적인 소요가 계속 있어 왔고요. 불행하게도 한국에도 작년과 올해 이와 비슷한 사건들이 있었습니다. 새롭게 출범한 미국의 트럼프 행정부는 아메리카 퍼스트라고 하는 고립주의 원칙을 발표하면서 세계 통상 질서의 변화를 예고하고 있습니다. 최근 더 심각해진 북핵 문제는 아시아, 동아시아의 지속적인 골칫거리입니다. 이러한 상황 속에서 국제 무역과 국가 간의 경제 협력은 더욱더 예측이 불가하게 만들고 있습니다. 예를 들면 미국의 고립주의는 향후에 글로벌 경제에 어떤 영향을 줄 것이며 결과가 어떻게 될지, 또 TPP와 같은 다자간 FTA는 제때 출범을 할 수 있을지 또는 최종 자초하게 될 것인지 우려를 주고 있습니다. 여기서 같이 생각해 보고자 합니다. 이런 의미에서 4차 산업혁명이 우리에게 주는 의미는 무엇일까요? 또 4차 산업혁명의 변화로 인해서 다가올 결과는 페알락 국가들에게는 어떤 영향을 주게 될까요? 우리는 어떤 대응을 하고 또 무엇을 준비해야 될까요? 업계에서는 이미 4차 산업혁명은 이미 초기 단계에 진입한 것으로 보고 있습니다. 4차 산업혁명이라는 용어는 작년 1월에 다보스 포럼에서 클라우스 슈밥 박사가 화두를 던지면서 전 세계적으로 유행을 하였는데 4차 산업혁명이라는 그 용어 자체가 주는 그 파괴력 때문에 이게 과연 혁명적인 변화인지는 반론도 만만치 않습니다만, 그가 주목했던 것은 그 범위나 규모나 그 복잡성에 있어서 우리가 경험했던, 우리가 일을 해왔던 방식과 전혀 다른 새로운 변화를 예고하고 있기 때문에 파급력이 더 크다고 얘기하고 있습니다. 여기서 저는 여러분들께 묻고 싶습니다. 만약에 내가 잘 모르는 변화가 과학기술의 혁신과 같이 온다고 할 때 이게 희망적으로 느껴지시나요? 아니면 위협적으로 느껴지시나요? 만약 시간이 된다고 하면 이 부분에 대해서도 논의를 해보면 좋을 것 같습니다. 다음은 4차 산업혁명의 특징을 같이 살펴보겠습니다. 아마 앞에 어제와 그저께 세션에서 많은 이 부분에 대한 설명을 어떤 누군가는 해주셨을 거라고 생각이 돼서 저는 그 각 산업혁명 단계의 특징이나 변화에 대해서는 따로 언급하지 않겠습니다. 4차 산업혁명의 이전까지 혁명들과의 차이점만을 제가 얘기하면 이전에는 단 하나의 촉매라든지 단 하나의 핵심 자원을 가지고 변화를 추구해 왔습니다. 그렇기 때문에 그 혁명의 결과도 한마디로 특징 지을 수 있는 것이 있었다고 하면 4차 산업혁명은 여기 제가 이렇게 요소 기술들을 언급해 왔는데 보시면 아시다시피 참 여러 개가 있습니다. 이게 과연 어떤 연관성이 있으며 어떻게 융복합할 수 있을지에 대해서 뭔가 언뜻 봐서는 뚜렷하지 않습니다. 제가 말씀드린 것 같이 이런 것들이 향후 어떻게 융복합될지를 모르기 때문에 더 파괴적이라고 할 수가 있습니다. 또 다른 특징 하나 말씀드리면 여기에 언급되어 있지는 않습니다만 인력의 대체입니다. 이전 산업혁명은 어떠한 경우라도 산업 구조의 변화를 일으키더라도 인간의 역할은 계속 더 오히려 늘어났습니다. 그러나 4차 산업혁명에서는 IoT라든지 AI를 기반으로 한 기계가 인간의 역할까지도 대체할 수 있을 것으로 보고 있습니다. 이 부분에 대해서도 뒷부분에서 다시 또 논의를 하겠습니다. 다음은 4차 산업혁명의 결과로 도래할 시대를, 사회를 그려본 것입니다. 한눈으로 보기에도 참 이해하기 쉽죠? 이 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 4차 산업혁명이 특징입니다. 간단하게 올 변화를 말씀드리면 에너지 분야에서는 에너지 프로슈머의 등장이 예상이 됩니다. 자동차 산업에서도 벌써 전기차가 등장하면서 그 내연기관의 어떤 감소와 함께 많은 변화들을 얘기하고 있습니다. 자동차 공유 경제가 증가할 것이고요. 사람들 간에서도 그 더 연결성이 초연결화되면서 그 컨슈머 파워, 소비자 파워가 크게 늘 것으로 생각합니다. 그러다 보면 당연히 그 제품 사이클은 더 짧아질 것입니다. 소프트웨어의 경쟁력이 더 증가할 것으로 예상이 되고요. 그 경계를 넘어서는 경쟁자들이 증가할 것으로 예상이 됩니다. 4차 산업혁명이 가져다줄 기회와 위험 요인에 대해서 살펴보겠습니다. 4차 산업혁명은 일반적으로 향후 50년을 지배할 패러다임이라고 얘기를 합니다. 앞서 산업혁명을 주도했던 국가들을 살펴보면 1차 산업혁명에서는 영국과 독일, 2차 산업혁명은 미국, 독일, 일본, 3차 산업혁명은 미국, 일본, EU 등의 국가들이 주도하고 있습니다. 그러면 4차 산업혁명은 어떤 국가들이 주도하게 될까요? 이전과 같이 기존 기술 선진국들일까요? 아니면 중국이라든지 한국이라든지 브라질이라든지 새로운 신흥 강자가 등장하게 될까요? 이런 것들을 알기 위해서 지금 선진국들이 준비를 하고 있는 4차 산업혁명의 그 특징들을 좀 살펴보겠습니다. 먼저 독일을 보면 독일은 사실은 그 4차 산업혁명이라는 용어보다는 그 자신들이 얘기하는 국가 프로젝트였던 인더스트리 4.0을 더 선호하는 듯합니다. 이걸 한마디로 요약하면 독일이 전통적으로 강했던 제조업 기반을 ICT, 업그레이드된 ICT 기술을 접목해서 스마트 팩토리를 확대하자는 것입니다. 미국의 경우는 조금 다릅니다. 미국은 뭐 잘 아시다시피 미국의 경제 자체가 그렇게 성장했듯이 국가가 직접 산업을 이끌어가기보다는 민간에서 자율적인 IT 기업들이라든지 이런 기업들이 그 활동을 할 수 있는 생태 환경을 조성해 주는 데 집중하고 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 미국은 정보를 좀 더 활용할 수 있는 빅데이터를 수집할 수 있는 클라우드에 더 집중하고 있고요. 그 다음에 우리가 일반적으로 DIY라고 부르는 자체 생산 활동을 격려하기 위해서 3D 프린팅이라든지 이런 것들에 더 기술에 주목하고 있습니다. 최근에 미국은 3D 프린팅으로 자동차도 만들었죠. 일본은 또 이하고 다릅니다. 일본은 전통적으로 로봇과학 기술에 더 관심이 많아서 정부가 정책적으로 이 부분을 지원하고 민간이 기술 개발을 통해서 이를 이끌어가는 민간 합동 모델입니다. 자, 그럼 여기서 4차 산업혁명이 우리 페알락 국가들에게는 축복일까요? 재앙일까요? 저는 이 두 가지 면이 다 있을 것으로 예상이 됩니다. 먼저 긍정적인 효과를 살펴보면 이른바 이제 우리가 유출 효과라고 부르는 것인데요. 이것은 산업 간에도 가능하고 국가 간에도 가능할 것으로 보입니다. 예를 들면 ICT나 IT 기술이 발달하면서 이런 부분들이 전자제품에도 적용이 되고 자동차에도 적용이 되고 요즘은 자동차 같은 경우 이제 전장 제품의 부분이 뭐 반 이상을 차지할 정도로 많이 올라가고 있습니다. 또 이런 ICT 기술이 화학 설비라든지 제철 설비의 고도화에도 영향을 줘서 좀 더 생산성을 증가시키는 이러한 효과들이 기대가 됩니다. 국가 간에도 이런 것들이 가능하고요. 예를 들면 기술 선진국이라고 부르는 독일이나 미국, 일본 등의 기술들이 벤치마킹을 통해서 중국, 한국, 멕시코, 브라질 이런 식으로 이전이 될 수 있어 보입니다. 그러나 여기에 따라서는 부작용도 만만치 않을 것으로 보입니다. 일단은 가장 우려되는 것이 일자리의 감소입니다. 어떤 잡서베이 결과를 보면 2020년까지 전 세계적으로 대략 500만 개 이상의 일자리가 줄어들 것으로 우려하고 있습니다. 또 다른 문제는 불평등의 가능성입니다. 이 불평등은 여러 가지 산업이나 분야에서 나타날 수 있는데요. 국가 간에도 존재하고요. 기술 선진국과 그렇지 못한 신흥국 간의 격차가 더 벌어짐으로써 야기되는 불평등이라든지, 기업 간에도 마찬가지입니다. 우리가 IT 공룡이라고 부르는 예를 들어 특정 기업을 언급하기는 그렇지만, 그런 기업들이 후발주자의 기업들을 먼저 플랫폼을 구축해서 진입을 막아버리는 이런 것들이 생길 수 있고요. 가장 우려되는 것은 인간들 간의 격차입니다. 불평등입니다. 예를 들어 최신 정보 기술을 가진 고임금 근로자가 전통적인 산업의 근로자들의 어떤 격차로 인해서 소외감을 느낀다든지, 최악의 상황은 로봇 보스에 의해서 일반 근로자들이 통제받고 감시받는 이런 사회의 가능성도 우려가 됩니다. 자, 이런 상황에서 제조업 중심으로 기존의 경쟁력을 갖고 있던 예를 들어 아시아 국가들이 해당될 수 있을 텐데요. 이런 국가들이 어떻게 해야 될까요? 서비스 산업이나 이런 곳으로 산업 구조를 좀 시프트를 해야 될까요? 아니면 현재 이런 제조업 비중을 그대로 유지하면서 가는 게 더 유리할까요? 여기에는 여러 가지 논의가 가능할 것으로 보입니다. 예를 들면 이제 한국 사회 같은 경우 이런 언급들이 많이 일반적으로 있어 왔는데, 선진국 경제로 우리가 진입해서 안착하기 위해서는 우리가 여태까지는 다소 소홀했던 예를 들어 서비스 산업이라든지 의료나 금융이나 교육 같은 이런 분의 비중을 높여야 된다는 주장이 있고, 이런 이유가 근본적인 되는 게 한국이 이제 저성장 국면으로 들어가면서 제조업에서 성장 엔진을 찾기가 점점 더 어려워지고 있습니다. 그러다 보니 이런 얘기들이 많이 나오고 있는 것 같습니다. 그러나 그렇다고 하더라도 우리가 진출해야 하는 금융이라든지 법률이라든지 이런 고부가가치 산업은 또 이미 선진국들에게 다 시장이 장악이 돼 있습니다. 특히 대부분 영국, 미국, 호주 같은 이런 영어권 국가에 과연 우리 신규 진입자가 진입할 공간이 있을지도 의문입니다. 한편으로는 우리가 소프트웨어라든지 엔지니어링이라든지 이런 분야에 있어서는 경쟁력이 있다고 보이는데, 이런 부분은 또 제조업이랑 제조업 경쟁력이랑 밀접한 연관을 갖고 있습니다. 다음은 한국의 제조업 현 주소를 가지고 아시아 국가들이 갖고 있는 공통적인 어떤 현 수준을 한번 같이 체크를 해보겠습니다. 왼쪽에 보시면 이제 한국의 제조업 수준을 보여주는 건데요. 한국은 제조업 분야에 있어서 GDP 대비 R&D 투자가 세계 최고 수준입니다. 2014년 기준으로 약 605억 불 정도를 투자했는데, 이게 세계 6번째 규모라고 합니다. 그러나 이렇다고 하더라도 한국조차도 어떤 선진국들이 갖고 있는 핵심 기술에 여전히 의존하고 있는 문제점이 있습니다. 또한 밑에 이제 그래프를 보시면, 이게 이제 미래부가 2015년 발표한 자료인데, 한국의 과학 기술의 수준이 선진국과 비교할 때 특정 분야에 집중되어 있다는 것입니다. 예를 들면 네트워크라든지 PLC 부분에는 투자가 많이 된 반면에 CAD라든지 센서, RFID 이런 부분에 있어서는 상대적으로 낮은 모습을 보이고 있습니다. 이에 따라서 한국도 민과 간이 협력하여 발전할 필요가 있습니다. 최근에 한국의 경제 성장 전략이 크게 바뀌었는데요. 작년까지 주를 이루었던 이제 창조 경제가 이제 태조가 되면서 새로운 성장 동력으로서 4차 산업혁명 전략을 내세우고 있습니다. 지금 그래서 이제 한국 정부도 4차 산업혁명위원회를 만들고 지금 미래부 장관 후보자께서 이제 임명 절차를 진행하고 있어서 아마 이 향후에는 좀 더 세부적인 계획이 있을 것으로 보입니다. 그래서 이 부분은 이제 제가 이제 예시적으로 제시를 한 건데요. 시스템 인더스트리라든지 에너지 인더스트리, 그다음에 소재 부품 인더스트리 등이 유망한 분야로 생각됩니다. 사실상 한국이 주도할 수 있는 모든 산업 분야를 망라한 것으로 보시면 되겠습니다. 정부 정책에 대한 제한도 가능할 것으로 보입니다. 일단은 전에 없던 새로운 산업이 도래를 예상하는 거기 때문에 규제 완화가 필요할 것이고요. 그다음에 플랫폼을 구축할 수 있는 정부의 지원이라든지, 그다음 신시장 수요 창출을 지원할 수 있는 정책적 뒷받침이 있으면 더 도움이 될 것 같습니다. 마지막으로 제안 부분입니다. 여기서 뭔가 구체적이거나 가시적인 엔드 이미지를 기대하셨다면 이게 좀 다소 기본적인 제안이 될 수 있는데요. 제가 이렇게 제안을 통해서 말씀드리고 싶었던 것은, 페알락 국가들의 특징을 보면, 페알락 국가에 속해 있는 국가들은 국가 규모라든지 지리적으로 멀리 떨어져 있을 뿐만 아니라 산업 구조라든지 경제 특징이라든지 이게 모두가 다릅니다. 그러나 이런 국가들을 다 하나로 이해관계를 통일한 어떤 통일된 의견을 나오기는 더 쉽지 않아 보였습니다. 그래서 이런 상황에서 가장 먼저 해야 될 것이 기본기를 구축해 놓자는 겁니다. 그래서 제안드리는 것은 스마트 인더스트리 인프라를 만들어 놓자는 겁니다. 예를 들어 아시아 국가들 같은 경우는 제조업이 강한데 여기서 어떤 분야를 스마트 산업으로 선정할 것인지, 어떻게 분류를 해서 표준화를 만들 것이고, 이거에 대한 컨센서스를 이룰 것이고, 또 법적인 규제가 있다면 이게 각 국가마다 서로 사전에 이런 것들을 정비해 놓는 것이 필요할 것으로 예상이 됩니다. 물론 국가 간에도 기술 교류가 필요합니다. 그래서 기술 교류를 국가 간의 확대를 통해서 이런 것들을 사전에 공유하고, 각 국가에서는 국가 내에서 충분한 홍보 활동을 통해서 이런 그 주변의 저기를 확대할 필요가 있어 보입니다. 다음으로 이런 것이 가능하다고 할 때 그 융복합 산업에 대한 그 표준화라든지 이런 확산이 가능할 것으로 보입니다. 특정 산업 분야별로 다양한 모듈을 만들어서 이런 것들을 퍼뜨려 볼 수가 있는데, 이 각 국가 간의 어떤 상호 운영성이라든지 이런 것들에 대한 고려가 필요하고요. 가장 중요한 게 이 데이터의 표준화 작업입니다. 기업 레벨에서 보면 이 선진 제조 기업들조차도 이 데이터 표준화가 중요한 게, 그 3차 산업혁명에서 4차 단계로 넘어가고 있는데 가장 많은 걸림돌로 작용하는 게 이 데이터 표준화입니다. 그러니까 각 공장들이라든지 부서 간에도 우리가 뭐 일반적으로 사일로 현상이라고 부르는 정보를 중간에서 차단하거나 각기 다른 데이터셋을 쓰다 보니까 수집이 제대로 안 되고, 수집이 되더라도 해석이 안 되고, 그래서 결국은 이제 무의미해져 버리는 이런 일들이 발생하다 보니까, 우리 아직 이런 것들을 새로 구축하는 단계에서는 이런 것부터 통일하고 표준화한다고 하면 더욱더 건전하고 긍정적인 어떤 이런 기조화에서 향후 성장 엔진을 찾을 수 있지 않을까 해서 제안을 해보았습니다. 옛날 속담에 빨리 가려면 혼자 가고 멀리 가려면 함께 가라는 말이 있습니다. 아시아 국가라든지 라틴 아메리카 모두 기술력에서는 다소 늦춰졌더라도 이 두 대륙 간의 협력을 통해서 좀 더 지속적인 발전을 같이 할 수 있었으면 하는 마음에서 이 말씀으로 마지막 발표를 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Mr. Oh, for particularly your efforts to shorten your presentation. Your presentation file is very comprehensive, but sorry for not giving you sufficient time to mention every point. The speaker, Mr. Lee Jae-chul, Senior Executive Director, Managing Director from Korea International Trade Association, which is the co-organizer of this event, had to leave early. So instead, Mr. Jo-ha Ki, Executive Managing Director of KITA, Korea International Trade Association, joins this panel as a discussant. He will make some comments within about 5 minutes. Okay, Mr. Cho. Please welcome Mr. Cho.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Kim. 지금 사회자가 말씀하셨듯이 앞서 키노트 스피치를 한 저희 무역협회 이재주 전무가 다른 일정 때문에 먼저 자리를 비워서 제가 간략히 코멘트를 드리고자 합니다. 세 분 발표 내용 잘 들었고요. 비록 짧은 시간이었지만 페일락을 통한 양 지역 간 협력을 확대하는 방안을 잘 제시해 주셨다고 봅니다. 또 일부 발표자께서는 상당히 제가 듣기에는 아주 생산적이고 건설적인 제안도 해주셨습니다. 다만 한 가지 저희가 실제 민간 섹터로서 사업을 해본 경험을 바탕으로 좀 정부 쪽에서 필락 멤버 컨트리들한테 한 가지 좀 더 당부를 드리고자 하는 코멘트를 드리고자 합니다. 결국 4차 산업혁명을 위한 민간 간의 이렇게 국경 간 협력이나 또 4차 산업혁명의 결과물이나 성과가 각국 산업계 는 물론 또 일반 퍼블릭들에게 이렇게 원활히 스며들게 해야 할 그런 필요가 있다고 봅니다. 앞으로는. 그런데 실제 아직도 저희가 이렇게 해보니까 많은 그 장애가 있었습니다. 뭐 잘 아시겠습니다만 그 WTO가 과거와 같은 그 세계 무역 질서를 규율하지 못하고 있습니다. AI라든가 자율주행차 등 각종 그 산업 간 융합 물론 이런 분야를 당연히 아직 관할하지 못하고 있고요. 특히 제가 기타에서 관계하고 있는 그 이커머스 분야로 들어가도 WTO는 사실상 거의 그 오버롤한 이렇게 규정만 두고 있을 뿐 실질적인 그 역할을 하지 못하고 있습니다. 뭐 대표적인 예를 든다면 이제 B2C를 통한 국경 간 거래 시 각국에게 어떤 통관 절차나 제도의 차이에서 오는 그 불편함이 굉장히 컸습니다. 그래서 필락 회원국 정부들의 어떤 이 분야 이런 분야 4차 산업 당연히 그렇고요. 분야의 어떤 정책적인 저와 하모니 폴리시가 꼭 한층 높여져야 되겠다 이런 코멘트를 드리겠습니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much. We have about 10 minutes. I really appreciate all the panelists' cooperation in managing time. I'm going to open the floor. First of all, collect a couple of questions or 3 or 4 questions, and then let each panelist to respond to those questions and comments by Mr. Cho. Okay. Before you make comments or ask questions, please kindly identify yourself and mention to whom your question should be addressed. Okay, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and this has been very interesting. My name is Paula Gopi-Skoon. I'm the Minister of Trade and Industry from Trinidad and Tobago. And we're not a Fealac member, but nevertheless, I'm here for the Latin America Cooperation Forum. My question is directed to Mr. Wilson Perez, in as much as we're not a Fealac member. Trinidad and Tobago is an industrialized, small country, but industrialized and very proficient in energy and gas production. However, there are problems as it relates to low oil and gas prices. And of course, if we are to realize our goal 17 in our under sustainable development goals, we have to look to other areas and diversify our economy. So my question is, where do you see the areas of cooperation, Mr. Perez, for Korea and Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the area of advanced manufacturing, high-value manufacturing, and agriculture as a means of sustainability, having to look other ways for income away from the energy sector? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And other questions or comments, please?
Thank you. Morning. Deidre Coy from Jamaica. I have a similar question to that raised by Trinidad and Tobago, but more focusing broader on the Caribbean. And where do you see the future cooperation of Korea and the Caribbean countries as part of Fealac in the future? My second question is, how do you think the Caribbean will cope with the increasingly disruptive nature of elements of the fourth industrial revolution, especially as these countries continue to rely on manual labor for their largely service-based economies, which may not be as advanced as some Latin American countries? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please let me invite comments or questions from the Asia side this time. If not questions, you may make some observation or no more? Okay, please, there.
Thank you. My name is Byung-il Ryu from Kita. My question is to Mr. Ramakrishna, so you mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goals and the role of Fealac in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So what do you think is the most important goal that must be achieved in SDG in terms of Fealac cooperation?
Okay,
Thank
let
you.
me pick up the last question, Professor Im.
네, 경희대학교 임효상입니다. 그 페레스 씨에 대해서 질문을 하나 드리고 싶은데요. 2주 전에 이제 한국에서는 한 스페인 포럼이 열렸습니다. 그 이틀간의 그 토론 중에서 예전부터 했었던 그 중남미 진출 관련해서 한국과 스페인 어떤 삼각관계에 대한 그 논의가 많이 있었는데요. 이번 주제가 이제 그 미래 협력 포럼에도 불구하고 중남미는 여태까지 한국과 중국, 일본 3국의 어떤 그 경쟁의 어떤 그였었는데요. 지금 저희가 이제 4차 산업혁명을 하면서 어떤 그 한국은 그 스마트폰에서 가장 앞서 있는 나라이기도 합니다. 하지만 아까 그 결론을 하시면서 중남미 대륙에 기회가 있다라고 이제 하셨는데 항상 저희가 4차 산업혁명을 얘기를 할 때 기회와 도전을 얘기를 하고 있습니다. 지금 어떤 그 직업이 없어질 가능성도 많이 우려를 하고 있고 그런데 제 개인적으로는 중남미의 어떤 그 삶의 방식 소위 말하는 어떤 그 모두스 비빙 됐을 때 그 코스타리카 같은 경우에 이제 뿌라비다 얘기를 많이 하고 있고요. 그다음에 에콰도르 같은 경우에 이제 부엔 비비르라는 얘기를 많이 하고 있습니다. 이랬을 때 우리가 4차 산업혁명이 어떤 스피드라든가 과연 어디를 향해서 가고 있는 실체적인 그런 상태가 안 했을 때 모든 어떤 삶의 방식이 오로지 스마트, 과연 스마트 러닝이 무엇이고 스마트 어떤 뭐 티칭이라든가 스마트 테크놀로지 항상 스마트라는 단어가 항상 쓰이고 있습니다. 그런데 그 실체에 대해서 아까 처음에 제가 질문드렸던 것이 스페인 사람들의 어떤 삶의 방식, 그다음에 중남미 어떤 사람들의 삶의 방식, 그리고 이제 페알락 전체 어떤 아시아 지역의 어떤 존의 어떤 삶의 방식이 이 4차 산업혁명을 했을 때 똑같은 어떤 그 마음의 준비를 가져야 되는 것인지 했을 때 각국의 어떤 장점이라든가 차이점이 그 어느 정도 고려가 될 수 있는지 기회와 도전을 마지막에
Okay.
결론하셨는데 그거에 대해서
Right.
어떤 답변 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you very much, Professor Lim. Let me then let each panelist to respond, but please let me limit the response to 1 minute each. Okay? Same order. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the questions. There is a common theme, and the common theme is, well, fourth industrial revolution is going to change a lot of things that we take for granted, whether it is in the nature of kinds of job opportunities, the kinds of relationships that we have with each other, etc. And I think that's a very important question, but a question that we need to address it slightly differently. What is happening in some countries is that, well, we protect what we can protect. You know, and that's not really going to help us in the long run. I'm talking about coal mining industry. You know, I mean, you can't protect the coal mining industry when the entire industry is moving towards non-renewable source of energy. And that applies to the question that Jamaica has also. This goes back to the point that I made. If a kid is growing up today, 20 years from now, about 2/3 of the jobs that are available at that time are not even there today. So in other words, you need to prepare yourself, prepare the country's people across the board to that kind of a changing environment. You know, we can't really stop progress, and that's one of the key points of the fourth industrial revolution. This is basically changing the way things, I mean, the Sustainable Development Goals, this goes to the question from Kita, is that it is about a transformative change in how countries and the global community works with each other in that. The most important thing that Fealac countries, you know, the Latin American countries can play with reference to Korea is this. If you take the investments in science, technology, and innovation from Korea, Japan, and China, they are at the top in the world. even the United States is lower than these three countries combined. European Union is lower than these three countries combined. So what Korea can do in working with countries in Latin America is, this is the last slide that I showed in my presentation, is really focus on taking the science, technology, and innovation and make sure, either in terms of how you invest in human capital or in terms of protecting the jobs, in terms of preparing people by providing the capacity that they need to adapt to the new jobs, is exactly the way to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. 3 points. First, jobs. I don't like very much the study by the World Economic Forum. I know it's based on Frey and Osborne. I think it's much better the study by McKinsey, where they show that instead of working with jobs, we have to think on functions developed by different jobs. And at the end, the McKinsey report 2016, they show that even if something like 40% of all jobs may be affected, only 5% of jobs will be affected in 100% of their functions. That is to say, the future is not the substitution of people by machines, it's the combination of people and machines. That is to say, what we used to talk the cobots. No? So we have to go beyond the Frey and Osborne paper. It's a good paper, but it's very dated. We have to go beyond the World Economic Forum proposition, and I think that to work in terms of functions. And related with functions, we have all the opportunities that can be developed through education. So don't think on something like the end of the world because of robotics. It's something like the combination of people plus machines. Second, related the cost of this new revolution for different sectors and for the people. When we study the use of internet by people who are online, we find that there is no difference between people in Europe, people in Asia, and people in Latin America. The big difference is between the poor and the middle class and the rich. The poor has no access, and the middle class and the rich have access. But once the poor get access, they do exactly the same things. They browse social networks, they buy when they have the capabilities, and they look, for instance, for news, for exports, for sports, and also for things related with streaming of music and streaming of films. So I would say that is not such a thing as the Latin American style. That is a style that is beyond rationality and is beyond productivity. I think that once you have the opportunities, people tend to homogenize because we are living actually in a global world. We have different customs, we have different ideas, but at the end, I think that the main problem is how we give access to the 50% that have no internet, and they will take care of their use of internet. And third, and I finish with that, is related with the selection of sectors. No, that was very well presented, asked by Her Excellency from Trinidad and Tobago and the case of Jamaica. And I would think I will not very popular in this answer, but it's this. I think the governments, given the degree of uncertainty, today cannot select the winner sectors in the medium run. I would say that is basically a business decision. We have no way to figure out which will be the winner sectors in 10 years or 15 years. So what we can do is prepare all the conditions for having smart people, well-trained people, people that are, at the end, have a good entrepreneurial philosophy, because otherwise it would be extremely difficult. Just think, and I finish with this, think that you had to choose sectors 15 years ago. Who was going to choose something like Mercado Libre in Latin America, or Taringa in Latin America, or Yapu in Latin America? They didn't even exist. Thank you.
네, 그 일자리 관련해서 제가 한마디만 첨언을 하겠습니다. 제가 일자리의 감소를 얘기한 것은 사실은 이제 4차 산업혁명이 가져다 줄 그 위기와 기회에 대해서 우리가 차분히 준비를 하자라는 차원이었는데 이게 자칫 청중분들의 공포감을 준 게 아닌지 다소 걱정이 돼서 말씀을 드리면 4차 산업혁명 관련해서 이제 가장 많이 나오는 이제 얘기 중에 예를 들면 이제 미국에서 1800년 초에 농업 인구가 90% 이상이었습니다. 근데 지금 미국의 농업 인구는 약 2%가 안 될 겁니다, 아마. 산업혁명으로 인해서 농업 부분의 인구가 줄어들었지만 그 인력들은 다 다른 산업으로 이전을 해서 더 생산성을 높여가면서 미국은 더 큰 번영을 이루었습니다. 그래서 제가 드리고자 싶었던 말씀은 뭐 삶도 그렇듯이 준비하는 자에게 기회가 오고 그 기회가 더 큰 보상과 성과로 돌아온다는 것을 좀 말씀드리고 싶은 차원이었습니다. 예, 이상입니다.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. I'm not going to summarize this morning's discussion, but in the history of civilization, we have witnessed that any paradigm shift has left with new losers and new winners. And this morning we have confirmed again the challenges and risks and also opportunities given for the Fealac member countries. This morning, Ambassador Im Gi-mo mentioned a Fealac fund, a new fund in the name of Fealac. I hope that fund could be allocated among other points, among others, picking up points from our panelists this morning, allocated to investment in human capital and business facilitation, presented by Mr. Ramakrishna and Mr. Perez, and particularly on smart industry platform as presented Mr. Oh. There can be many other important suggestions, but I hope that would be kind of core of the wise responses that fellow member countries could make in this new era of Industry 4.0. Thank you very much, everybody, for cooperation to make this mission complete. Thank you.